Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Lana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Where we talk about the tea and the crimes.
Good morning. How are you doing? Your intro, I try to gauge your mood by your intro, but it was unclear on this one. How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Can you look at my hair part? I feel like
see
Gen
it.
Z is trying to get me. It's
Did
doing this
you-
by
did-
itself. It's a middle part, and usually I have like a slight side part, and I flip my hair over.
I mean, it's not direct middle. It's a nice
pretty
compromise.
Middle. No, it's middle, and I mean, maybe it's because I've been wearing more high-waisted jeans and crop tops to fit in.
You've been wearing crop tops?
I mean, when I wear the high-waisted jeans, I can wear shorter tops. Because it goes up to your freaking rib cage, essentially. Not really, but that's what it feels like.
Right. You don't mind the high-waisted, though. It's the bell bottoms that you don't like.
Oh, hate them.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I want to just walk on my jeans. It's fun.
Okay.
So, yeah. I guess
We're here
I'm
for the latest trends.
Oh my God. There's a quiz.
Okay.
There's a quiz, and it I got to send it to you. There's a quiz.
Is this like when you made me find out that I was just sheep and should just follow myself off a cliff with my herd?
That was so good. No, this one is what generation are you at the workplace? So I was like 68% millennial and 22% Gen Z. And
Really?
I know, but like the other people at work did it, and it was just wild to see the results. But I'll send you the quiz, but when you go through it, you can so clearly tell what a Gen Z and what a boomer answer is. Like, it's so easy to pick them out.
I'm not good at math, but that's not 100%.
Oh, sorry. 78.
Okay, but it was
22.
split. I didn't know if you were like a little bit boomer as well, which is what I was looking for.
No boomer.
Gen X. I might be a little Gen. What's the one before?
X.
Is it Gen X?
Yeah, the forgotten generation.
They go under the radar for everything.
They do.
I want to be part of theirs.
It's always millennial versus boomer, millennial versus Gen Z. Like, come on,
Yeah.
why are we fighting everybody?
I know. Gen X just ignored everything.
Just like their
owned it.
childhood.
I'm real close. I'm thinking maybe I'll just slip into that generation and
You're not.
be left
You're
alone.
not an exennial though.
I don't know what that means.
Exennial is like when you're on the cusp.
No, I'm not. I know I'm a millennial.
But you
by
feel
the age,
like
but
you
I'm
are.
saying.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Maybe I just feel more like
Yeah.
Gen X.
Okay, I'll send you the quiz.
We'll see. I'll take the quiz and I'll let you know. I promise you I'm 0% Gen Z.
You'd be surprised because it's some stuff like gifts. Do you send gifts at work? And I'm like, yes.
I do not.
Okay. Well, you're missing out on a lot of fun.
Gifts? Like what kind of gifts? Birthday gifts?
Like what?
Birthday gifts? See? You're saying gifts, aren't you? See? I think I just proved it. I might be a boomer. You said gifts.
Oh, that was the best thing ever. Thank you for that.
Thank
you for that gift.
Yeah. I'll send you a gift of it later. And this is funny because yesterday I was talking to my dad and he accidentally sent my niece and nephew a gif of Charlie Brown that says, "When you're single and all your friends are in a relationship." He sent it to his grandkids and then he was laughing about it, how he accidentally sent it and he called it I sent a GFI to him and I didn't know what happened. I was like,
GFI?
Nope. So the fact that I just like you said gift is just really coming full circle for me now and we should move on.
I cannot wait.
It doesn't matter what generation I'm in. I've never been cool. Moving on. What tea do you have for today?
Oh my God, that was magic.
That was hilarious. I was like, what are you saying? Well, I also had an image of you being like, just Mrs. Claus at work. And I was thinking, gosh, I don't send anybody. I don't even tell people happy birthday. I just let it go by. Why are we sending gifts to all of, you have worked for a big company. That must really Put a strain on your wallet.
That's so funny.
Yeah, all right. Go on.
Okay. Today, Taylor's tea, which is a very high-end British tea, so it has the mark of His Royal Highness. Certain products, will get their seal on it. So this one does, and it's a spiced Christmas tea, which is, very seasonal. And let's see here. This deeply flavored with a U, festive blend combines warming spices and a lovely touch of citrus, made with light and delicate teas from Africa, big continent, where can we be more specific, and high altitude teas from India. I'm very excited to drink it. I need another cup of tea. Let's go for the sniff test. There's definitely clove, which makes sense, warming spice.
Right.
And
That's very
I
holiday.
think there's a little kiss of citrus. Let's see. Ooh. This is nice. This deserves that Royal Highness seal.
I got a shoulder shimmy from you.
Wow. Clove is the strongest, which is not surprising because you could smell it the best, but completely takes over the whole mouth. Like every corner, warming spices.
That's an image.
Oh, it's so good. It's true. It's not like a heavy body. It is a light and delicate. Some would say petite. It's nice because it doesn't weigh it down. It just kind of floats like you're floating in a warm, maybe a natural spring, heated.
Okay.
Gosh, what do I want to give
without the
this?
snakes or the sulfur?
No sulfur, no snakes. We'll say it's set in New Zealand, so there won't be snakes. Or Ireland. I don't think Ireland has any hot springs, though. Okay, off topic. Our Irish listeners, please get back to us on this. Okay, I feel like there's so much more pressure on my rating system now because I can't reuse things. Oh my God.
Which you never have. You're putting these constraints on yourself. Now you're trying to think through 80 different ratings to see if it's in the catalog.
Oh God.
I'll let you know if it's a repeat.
This one, I would have to say, and I'm really excited to bring it along more snuggle parties, a spiced cozy thumbs up.
Spiced cozy thumbs up.
It's not just cozy. It has that nice spice to it.
Do you have snuggle parties?
Well, I was just saying,
I don't want an invite.
Lately, because of the temperature, I've been going on the couch with my computer and I've had like all the animals around. I put the Netflix fireplace on and that's the coziness. That's the snuggle party.
So you snuggle with your house members.
Yeah.
That are fur. Well, do you remember that article that came out that said cuddling in the workplace was a new thing that some country was trying? And I still think about it. That was a decade ago.
I forgot about that. What generation is that? Gen Z?
Generation felony.
That's horrific. Did you hear about the Taco Bell sex party?
Excuse me?
No.
I've never been to Taco Bell and this isn't helping.
Like they had a holiday party that turned into an orgy.
I mean, like corporate or just a random Taco Bell in the Midwest?
Oh, I don't know. You mean like corporate versus like the hourly workers?
I mean, I'm just trying to paint the picture.
I just read a little bit of it. I need to dive into it. But essentially, a complaint was made from one of the workers. And she's like, I brought a bowl of guacamole. It was a potluck. And then people were just doing the act in the open.
What happened to the guacamole?
Someone threw up in the bowl of it.
That was not what I was...
After they had sex in front of everybody.
That's not what I was expecting. I mean, I didn't think the guacamole was making it out unscathed, but I thought something else was going to happen.
It never had a chance.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't... I mean, holiday parties are wild.
Yeah.
But I did not know that was a... I'm not up to date on any current events, okay? Send me a GIF. All right. You ready? You ready?
I'm ready with my middle part. Go.
All right. Let's do it. Stop laughing because, I'm about to bring you down.
Great. Thanks.
November 1st, 1958, a body is discovered approximately 50 yards from the shore of Cowan Lake in Ohio.
Oh.
The remains have been burned beyond recognition from the knees up. Yeah. Not great.
Wait. From the knees up?
Yeah.
How do they control that? Sorry.
I don't think it was intentional.
Okay.
But yeah. No, that is the one detail that solved the case. Thank you for calling it out so early.
This is what I'm here for.
Yeah. It's solved now, folks, so
Probably
Ohio
because
Police
the
Department.
legs, the knee, under the knee were in the water. Okay, we don't need to think about this anymore.
Nope, they're approximately 50 yards from the shore. So, no water.
True mystery.
So duck hunters, Cecil Maines, Albert Walker, and Dean Jackson had spent the day at Cowan Lake, and they got up super early, about 4 a.m. By late afternoon, it started to rain a little bit, and they had no luck with hunting. So score one for the ducks. And they started to walk back to their car. It was Cecil who first spotted the legs sticking out of a collection of cattails. So maybe that's why. Maybe the legs were not in the brush.
Did you know that you could eat cattails?
Didn't. Not going to.
Oh.
Cecil thinks it's a Halloween prank because it's November 1st.
Oh,
He thinks maybe kids set some sort of prop on fire.
Right.
And then he realizes the terrifying truth because the legs were badly blistered from the fire.
Oh.
And they see a necklace where they imagine the neck would be, and there's red fabric covering the skull.
Oh.
The men go to the nearest home. They call for help. They wait for state troopers to arrive. They're on scene around 5:30 p.m. Now, police have very little to go by in terms of identifying the victim. They estimate that the victim is female, anywhere from 20 to 35 years old, with brown hair, and time of death within the last 24 hours. That's all they have as a preliminary investigation. Where the body had been dumped had two main entry points. So one is a trail that's roped off, and the other is a service road called Cemetery Service Road.
Yikes.
Morbidly. Investigators suspect that the body was driven down the service road and then dumped from the trunk of a car or a truck or something. Sheriff Floyd Foote was reported in the Dayton Daily News as saying, "I've been a sheriff for 22 years, and I've seen a lot of gruesome cases, but this is the first victim I've come across that was burned like that." Investigators process the scene as fast as they can because they're losing daylight.
Oh, sure. It's November.
Or they've already lost it, probably,
Yeah,
at 5:30.
5:30.
Under the remains, a penknife and a keyring are found in the mud. The keyring contains several keys, one of those belonging to an Oldsmobile. So they know that they're looking for that kind of car somewhere.
Okay.
The next day, they'll also find a wedding band discovered at the scene as well. Now, once the scene is processed, police have a few more details, but not a ton. The victim profile they're able to release is this. We know it's a female, 5'5" to 5'9", 135 to 150 pounds, 25 to 35 years old, short brown hair, crooked teeth. That's really vague. That's a huge range.
Quick question. So you said the person was brought in a trunk, right? And then put there?
In a trunk of a car, not...
Before or after before or after the fire burning?
They believe they were brought... The body was dumped there.
And
while
then burned?
she was dead. And then burned.
Okay.
To get rid of evidence, yeah. Which is one of my next notes. So they believe the victim had already been dead, carried to Cowan Lake. Was the next note. But a sketch is impossible.
Well, sure.
You know, like we've seen done before, it's just not possible.
They don't have that technology we do now where you can you know how they put it on old pharaohs, the skull, and they can do the whole facial
but
features.
Also, that's true. But also I think that the remains were so badly burned, it was not easy for them to reconstruct it.
Which is what they're trying to do.
Yeah. The injuries consisted of 2 skull fractures, and they could see that there had been some sort of bruising on the face and neck. They believe the cause of death is blunt force trauma to the head, and the remains would have needed to burn for several hours to reach the state that they'd been discovered in.
Jeez.
Now, they're trying to find when the body was put at Cowan Lake.
Yeah.
What time? Now, the park ranger had done rounds Halloween morning around 8 a.m. He hadn't seen anything. Work was scheduled to be done in that same area later that day via the service road. That worker showed up between 12:30 and 3:30. And the workers' tire tracks are the last tire tracks they see leaving the road. So they assume that worker was the last person to go into that area, which means that they think the body would have been dumped between 8 a.m. and 12:30, but then nobody saw anything burning.
That's the thing. Are there houses on the lake that might have seen a fire?
Nobody saw anything. So police scour the missing persons reports, and by November 4th, media is reporting that the victim is a possible match to a missing woman named Martha Louise Bergen. She goes by Louise. 32-year-old Louise had been missing since October 30th. She owns a 1950 Oldsmobile. She'd been wearing a red coat when she left her job that night at Still Pass Transit, which is a trucking company she'd been a bookkeeper for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Louise had plans to meet with a friend Thursday night, which is Thursday is the 30th, but she never showed up.
Oh, God.
that friend is named Ann Tabor. Ann and Louise had plans to go to a furniture and supply show. It sounds
Okay.
incredibly boring, but that's where they were going. Ann told Louise she would call her as soon as she got home because Ann had an appointment. And as soon as she got home, she'd call Louise and then they'd meet up.
Okay.
Ann gets home around 6:30. She calls Louise's house. Louise's mother answers and says she's not here. I assume she's still at work. Ann calls work. Louise isn't at work either. So Ann's thinking, all right, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm just supposed to meet her there. She goes down to the music hall where the show's being held. She's hoping just she'll run into Louise and that'll be that. But Louise isn't there. Ann's worried. So when she gets home, she calls Louise's house again, hoping something happened and now she's going to have an explanation. Again, Louise's mother answers. Louise is still not there. Louise's mother's name is Abby. Now, Abby's starting to get incredibly worried because she knew she had plans to come home, have dinner, and then go meet her friend Ann. She also knows that she wouldn't just take off and not tell her.
Right.
The next day is Halloween. Louise has a 9-year-old daughter.
Oh.
She is expecting to take her daughter out trick-or-treating.
Sure.
That weekend is Abby's birthday. They have a little birthday celebration planned for Abby. There's no way Louise is just going to take off and leave them. So the next day, Abby calls Bill Bergen, which is Louise's estranged husband. They're separated.
Oh, God.
And Bill is also concerned. He goes down to Still Pass Transit to look for Louise just to make sure maybe, I don't know, she had a wild night. She's not there. He starts calling hospitals to see if she's been injured, to see if there was a car wreck.
Do we believe him?
He goes down to the police station. He files the missing person report. He provides a description of what Louise had been wearing from what Abby told him. She'd been in an olive green 2-piece dress, a red coat, black belt, and she'd been carrying a black purse. Now, police tell him because the couple are separated, he has to wait 24 hours before they'll start to investigate.
Oh, I hate that rule. I hate that rule.
So that night, Bill's concerned. He spends the night at Louise's apartment with his daughter and his mother-in-law in case Louise comes home to help comfort his daughter.
So they have a good relationship?
They're just separated. They're not divorced. They, we'll piece together the kind of relationship they have, but we don't get Louise's account of it.
Yeah.
Because of the state the body was in, the police approached the family with the few belongings they found at the scene. Now, Bill recognizes the key ring that they found because it was a Christmas present from Still Pass Transit, and all the employees got one, and he knew Louise had one. Abby, Louise's mother, identifies the gold necklace as Louise's.
God, that gotta be so hard for her.
I know. And then all of the keys on the key ring fit things of Louise's, her apartment.
And her wedding band, too, right?
Right. Her apartment, her suitcase, her car. They all match. So they know at this point that the victim is Louise Bergen. Now, an employee of Still Pass Transit, Mel Abrams, he confirms that he saw Louise leave the company parking lot, which is located at 4967 Spring Grove Ave, Thursday night around 5 p.m. That's the last anybody admits seeing Louise alive.
Okay.
Louise's car is later found abandoned in a mall parking lot, and the driver's side is unlocked. Now, horrifically, as the examination continues, medical examiners are not 100% sure when Louise Bergen passed away. There is a possibility she was still alive, but unconscious when she was set on fire.
No.
This is appalling and terrifying, but it also calls into question the jurisdiction because Cowan Lake is far away from Cincinnati, where Louise and her life was. So did it happen in Cincinnati where she was attacked and killed and then dumped, or did it happen at Cowan Lake?
How about you guys work together?
I know, right? Why does it matter? They also start to think the fire was not started until after 3:30 on Friday. Now they're starting to say that it was after the worker left. If that's the case, then where was Louise Thursday night and all day Friday?
Right.
The investigation starts to look into those close to Louise, just like you do, right?
Yeah.
She was separated from her husband. So was she dating somebody? Did she have a mystery man? Was she involved in some sort of love triangle? What was her relationship like with Bill? All of these things. They start with Bill, right? Now, Louise had grown up in Galveston, Texas, and she'd met Bill in 1947 at a USO dance. They married the following year in Virginia because Bill was stationed with the U.S. Navy. In 1949, they have their daughter, Linda Louise. After Bill left the Navy, he started working for Colonial Stores, and the family transferred to Cincinnati in 1955. The couple separated the spring of 1958. Louise stayed in the apartment complex of Swifton Village at 1870 Langdon Farm Road with Louise. That's the timeline of their relationship, but Bill offers more color as to what was going on behind closed doors and why they separated. But this is just Bill's account. This is all we have.
Right.
Bill says that the couple had grown apart, and he takes the blame a little bit. He says he liked to go out a lot, and he liked to go out without Louise. So she would ask to come, and he would say no.
Not cool.
In the book listed in those sources, he says, quote, "A couple of times I had dates with other individuals. Nothing that ever became serious." So that means you're cheating, Bill. That's what that means.
Yeah, we don't do that.
After Bill had a few dates, Louise decided to have a few dates of her own with one particular gentleman, and he said Louise had an affair.
Well,
that's, I know.
double standards.
So did you, Bill. That's the reason they moved to Ohio. They decided to stay together, but Bill said the affair seemed to be over, but that the couple were not confabulating on their own and that it was really rocky.
As a man and a woman.
But they're still married and they're still together. At this point, Bill starts dating a woman named Edythe Klumpp. Beautiful name. Louise found out and had some questions, right? Like, hey, are you dating another woman while we're still married? And he said, yeah, I am. And then he chose to leave to be with Edythe.
This is weird.
So at the time of Louise's death, Bill is living with Edythe at 1751 Bloomingdale Road. Now, Linda lives with Louise full time, but Abby, her grandmother or Louise's mother, is there and provides childcare.
Okay.
After school and things like that. Bill pays $10 a week in child support.
It's not a lot.
I know. Now that summer, remember they separated in the spring. So that summer, Abby, the grandmother, takes Linda to spend the summer with family. This allows Louise a little bit of time to just be by herself and kind of think about what she wants and what she wants to do and just kind of get things sorted. During that time, she decides that divorce is best, and she officially files divorce papers that fall.
Oh my God, he did it.
Now, Bill is saying when the papers were officially filed, he started having second thoughts. And he started considering a reconciliation. He saw Louise get into a car with her boss, Charles Chick Haft, and then he followed her. So that's dicey. They ended up just going to lunch, which apparently was something Chick did with a lot of his employees.
Mm-hmm.
But after he saw this interaction, he started kind of cruising by Louise's house to see if a car was there at night. And he eventually decides to talk to her about it, and he explains that he wants to get back together. Now, without naming names, Bill talks to Louise, but is kind of fishing for details. He goes into the conversation acting as if he knows for sure Louise has a boyfriend, just to see if that'll kind of call her bluff.
Mm-hmm.
And she never admits that she does, but according to Bill, he says Louise was seeing a married man and didn't like the idea of seeing a married man, and so she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. The couple speak more than once, and the next time they speak, Louise mentions her boss, Chick. Mm-hmm. And again, this is all Bill's account. Louise doesn't have the luxury of telling us if she was seeing anybody or what was happening. So when she mentioned Chick, Bill makes the assumption that that's the married man, that that's the person that Louise is with.
Yep.
And Bill said that Chick had lent Louise his car and he'd stayed at her house until like 3 a.m. And so to him, that meant that was affirmative that they were having an affair. But even if that's true, Louise doesn't seem sure of what she wants to do. So she asks Bill for some more time and she'll hold off on finalizing the divorce and she'll think about it. She said she only started the divorce proceedings because he was living with another woman. And she assumed that since they're living together, they might want to be married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Bill says this is what happened. This is kind of the messiness of their relationship, but that he wanted to reconcile with Louise. Now, police check into Bill's alibi. Bill was friends with Mel Abrams from Still Pass Transit. Mel Abrams is the last person to see Louise alive.
Yes.
They had all been friends together, and when the couple separated, Mel stayed friends with both of them.
Okay.
So Bill had spent the evening with Mel, which was something he did regularly, and Mel vouches for him. Police decide to investigate further. So if Louise is having this affair with Chick, which is a ridiculous name, but I kind of like saying it, then maybe they need to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
So they investigate further. They go to Still Pass Transit. Can't say that. The employees of Still Pass are not buying it. They said they never saw anything out of the ordinary between their boss and Louise.
But 3 a.m.
That Chick treated everybody like that. Now, Chick admits he let Louise borrow his car. He and other employees would pick her up and take her to and from work because Bill took the only car the family had when he left.
Oh.
Now, the offhand comment about Chick having been in the apartment till early in the morning, he admits that. He said he let her borrow her car to go home one night, and then he had to pick it up really late at night. When he picked it up, he went inside and they talked for a while, and it ended up being late. According to him, all they did was talk. Now, another employee will say that Louise also recounted this night. And she said that Chick stopped by. They talked for a while. She said it was nothing happened, and he didn't make a pass at her, but it was a little awkward because it was so late at night and he seemed like he didn't want to leave.
Interesting.
But that nothing had happened.
Okay.
So there you have it. Anyway, Chick said that he gave her the Oldsmobile that she was currently driving at the time of her death because she didn't have a vehicle. It was a company car that had been returned, and he gave it to her to use. He said, you can either use it as a company car or you can just buy it outright for $100, whatever you want to do.
Wow.
And that it was an employee setup, not a mistress setup.
Yeah.
Either way, Chick has an alibi for the night Louise disappeared. He had been with 4 other local businessmen. They kind of crossed him off the list. Now, during Bill's, account of the last few months, he mentioned several times that he has a girlfriend. Her name is Edythe. And Edythe knew Louise, and Louise knew Edythe. And according to Edythe,
awkward,
Louise was seeing another man of her own. Edythe said that she met Louise and they'd spoken a few times, and Louise told her she had a, quote, hillbilly man who loved her but didn't want to raise Linda, and she wanted Edythe to help her convince Bill to get a divorce.
Whoa.
Police check on Edythe, right? I mean, you got to check all the players.
Yeah.
The night of the disappearance, October 30th, Edythe had a sewing lesson at 4 p.m. She was teaching 4 Girl Scouts how to sew. At 5 o'clock, she runs some errands. She's back home by 6:15, and then she goes to Woodward High School where she teaches adult sewing classes at night.
Wow.
She was a few minutes late because she had car trouble, so she ran right to class to get the class started, and then she checked into the office at 7:20. So usually she checks in at 7, so she was about 20 minutes late. So police have questioned Bill. Nothing out of the ordinary. They've questioned Edythe. She has an alibi. They've questioned Edythe's ex-husband, just to be sure.
Wow.
Nothing. They've
Who's
questioned
the hillbilly boyfriend?
Right? They questioned Louise's boss. Nothing. They try to find evidence to back up what Louise had told Edythe about this boyfriend, but they can't really find this mystery man. But the working theory suddenly becomes that Louise had a date Thursday night. She met a man and then was murdered. But who the heck is this man? Because she was supposed to meet Anne.
Right.
So did she really have a date?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like we don't know her well enough, but
I know.
I don't know if she would be the friend to flake on somebody.
So in their investigation, they find an account of Louise kissing a man at work, a still past dispatcher.
Oh.
The man admitted liking Louise, but Louise had stopped after the kiss and said she wanted to wait till she was officially divorced to start anything. But the newspapers really seem to be running with the idea that Louise had several dates and several suitors.
What? Based on what?
But no names are mentioned. I don't know. They, you know how they like to do that? They're kind of hedging towards, oh, maybe she went out on a date.
It's not helpful.
So again, they're questioning the mother, Abby. They're questioning her sister who lives in D.C. Her name is Billy. They're questioning Bill. For a while, the case just kind of fizzles out. Media cools on reports. There's like little snippets in the paper about it, small recaps. On the 18th, the Wilmington News Journal reports that several polygraphs have been administered, but they won't say to whom.
Oh.
But we know some of the polygraphs administered were to one, the man she was kissing, who says he loves her. So that makes me think, really just from a kiss? Okay.
Uh-oh.
He passes the test. No problem. Has an alibi. They rule him out. Mel Abrams, the employee who saw her leave the parking lot, and also Bill's alibi. He also passes. No problem. He's believed to be telling the truth. They give Bill a polygraph. He has to come back because he was too nervous on the first one and he needed to come back a second time. He reschedules the second time. He passes. Edythe, she cancels. Then she reschedules. And then she fails. November 19th, front page news in the Cincinnati Enquirer says, woman held in torch slaying, teacher charged with murder in rival's death.
Whoa.
Edythe Klumpp, Bill's living girlfriend, gives a partial confession. Now, Edythe claims she was the one who met up with Louise, that they'd met before to discuss Bill and the upcoming divorce. She states, and this is a quote, something happened and Mrs. Bergen was injured.
What? Something happened? Did you happen?
Yeah. And then Louise was placed in the trunk and the next day drove out to Cowan Lake and set her on fire.
What?
Edythe is charged with first-degree murder. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack with.
Yeah.
There's not to unpack here. Starting with the fact that Edythe spells her name with a Y, and it messed up my brain for this entire note-taking, and I just started changing it. because I found out that that's not actually how she spells her name. She just thought it looked cooler and she changed it. But that's not important. So Edythe with a Y was born January 18th, 1918 in Cincinnati. Her father had played for the St. Louis Cardinals for a minute. And
Okay.
Edythe was also incredibly athletic, and she grew up playing sports. After high school, she was an assistant gym teacher.
Okay.
1936, she married a man named George Montgomery. They had one child named Jack. They get divorced in 1940, and George does not support Edythe or Jack. So, not impressed with George. And maybe because she doesn't have support, or maybe it was love at first sight, she ends up marrying Robert Klumpp. They have 4 children together.
Whoa.
One of those children dies at a very young age, unrelated. So they have 3 children plus Jack. Now, the Klumpps for years are also foster parents, with as many as 15 children in the home at times, especially during World War II.
Whoa. Like a good way or a bad way?
They won awards for it.
Still, we don't know.
Yeah. By the 1950s, Edythe, this is when she changed the spelling of her name, she decided to drop a Y in, designed a house that the couple lived in with her second husband. They put him in some debt.
Oh.
This caused Edythe to need to find work outside the home.
Yeah.
And there was mixed reviews about Edythe's work. As a teacher, rave reviews. Students loved her. She had a ton of repeat students. Her classes were popular. In other jobs, not so great.
Uh-oh.
She worked for a store. She was fired because she was mailing shirts to herself. She worked for the highway patrol, and she was fired because she was causing conflict between the folks there. I don't know. 1957, Bob and Edythe get divorced. Bob says Edythe was having an affair or affairs, and things had been tense between the two of them. Edythe started going out with a fellow waitress, dyed her hair blonde, lost some weight. Everybody was looking at her a little different. Party time. Apparently, Edythe was dating a highway patrolman for a minute. She had a mechanic who was 10 years younger, who was married and had a kid. She was also dating him. She was teaching classes 4 nights a week and then not coming home until 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah. Now, the couple's fights escalated. It's unclear how physical things got, but Edythe threw a bottle at Bob and then punched him in the face, so he needed stitches. Yeah.
That's not okay.
But during the divorce, Edythe brought assault charges against Bob, and she filed a restraining order at one point. And the police started having to visit the Klumpp residence in 1956, so, a few months to a year before the actual divorce.
She's unhinged.
Shortly after the divorce, Bill Bergen enters the picture. Now, according to Edythe, Bill pursued her at the restaurant she was working at. They went on a few dates, and then they were inseparable, despite the fact that he's living with Louise and married to her. In June, he asked Edythe to marry him. They had a ceremony, although it's not legally binding because,
he's married?
He's married to somebody else. And then they went on a honeymoon later that summer.
What is happening?
Edythe insisted on being called Mrs. Bergen from then on, and they told everybody that they were married. And if anybody called her Mrs. Klumpp, like one of her former students, she would not answer until they called her Mrs. Bergen.
Wow.
I mean, it's a nicer name. I'll give her that. Edythe and Louise had met. Once Bill moved out, Edythe was not a secret. And the two women had chatted more than once. I don't know why, but they had.
Yeah, it's weird.
Edythe claims, get this, Edythe claims Louise opened up to her about having second thoughts about the divorce simply because of Linda, their 9-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
That sounds like a heart-to-heart that you maybe wouldn't have with your husband's mistress.
Yeah, pretend wife. That's weird.
But I don't know.
What do we know?
Edythe says the conversation ended with Louise saying she wasn't sure if she wanted a divorce. And Edythe said, well, I'm not going to give Bill up with a fight. And Louise was like, that's fair. Let me think on it a little bit. And then who has that conversation? I mean, I don't know. I've never been in this situation, but I just feel like I wouldn't be having this conversation with the mistress. I'd be having it with my husband. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, Edythe says her and Bill were just an absolute fake marital bliss until September when Louise officially filed for a divorce, and then Bill started having second thoughts, and he started to pull away from Edythe a little bit. Edythe was also pregnant at the time.
Oh.
And Bill said, well, you'll be fine without me. And he talked about moving out, but he never did. Then in October...
This guy kind of sucks, sorry.
Yeah, he does. Then in October, Louise calls her BFF Edythe up again because she wants Edythe to know that she's made up her mind and is going to divorce Bill, because that would be the first person you called to tell that news to.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Bill had asked her to think on it, right? We know that from Bill's
Yep.
account. And Edythe is like, yeah,
Nah.
you can think on it. I don't even know if I want Bill anymore, honestly. He's kind of sucks. That was the conversation. But this is where Louise told Edythe about the hillbilly man who would visit her every weekend, sometimes on Thursdays, that Edythe was telling everybody about. So, is that true?
This is all planned.
Yeah. Edythe, here's the part I find even more fascinating. Edythe has these heart-to-hearts with Louise, and then she keeps all this to herself. She doesn't even tell Bill. Wouldn't you at least tell Bill?
You'd think, unless
You'd think
there's something.
it would come up, right? I don't know. Suddenly, Bill seems interested in the baby again, and Bill and Edythe decide to stay together until Christmas and see how it goes. They also had started house shopping, but they had opted instead to buy out Edythe's ex-husband for his shares of the house that they were living in, so they didn't have to move, and they could stay in the house because Edythe had designed it. Now, Bill's account of his relationship with Edythe is a little different than Edythe's. He moved in that summer, he says, not because they were madly in love, but because Edythe told him she was pregnant. And then he was told she had a miscarriage.
Oh.
That fall, as he was having second thoughts, Edythe becomes pregnant again. He wanted to reconcile with Louise, but the fact that he had a baby on the way with another woman, gave him pause.
Muddies that.
Edythe fails the polygraph. Cops examine her 1956 Chevy. It's clear it had been cleaned pretty recently. The trunk is spotless. The seats are cleaned. They still find a hairpin under the seat that has blood type A on it, which is Louise's blood type. They also see possible blood splatter on the ceiling. Edythe says, whoops, I forgot to mention during one of our conversations, Louise got a nosebleed. And they said, and then did she defy gravity and hang upside down in the car? Because it's on the ceiling, madam. And she said, oh, that's from a milkshake from the kids.
What?
Now, police refused to release her, and they just kind of let her stew for, not long, a couple hours.
Okay.
After a few hours, Edythe says, okay, I'll tell you what happened, but only after I'm allowed to talk to Bill. They let Bill come in. I guess Bill sits there, and the police all listen to Edythe explain what happened. She says Louise asked to meet up with her that night, and Louise brought a gun, and Louise shot herself with the gun.
I don't believe it.
The story is reported in the Cincinnati Post from a written confession. I'm going to paraphrase because it's the whole article, but this call happened around 5 p.m. They meet at Swifton Shopping Center where Louise's car was found. Edythe didn't want to meet, but Louise said it was important. Louise got in Edythe's car, and then they drove to Caldwell Park. Louise was expecting a phone call at 6:30, so she wanted to talk quickly and get back home, which we know would have been Anne, right?
Yeah.
Edythe provides no details about what they discussed.
Yeah,
like leading up to this
killed her
moment. The car is parked in what they call a circle drive, which I assume means probably a cul-de-sac. And Edythe got out of the driver's seat and went around to the back because she was trying to move the driver's seat back and it wouldn't budge. She found that a glass Coke bottle was stuck under the driver's seat, so she bent down to remove it. When she stood back up, Louise was pointing a gun at her. They struggle for the gun, and it goes off by accident, pointing up at Louise's chin. Edythe checks for a pulse, realizes Louise doesn't have one, and she starts running down the road to find help. Then she stops and just goes back to the car. Up until now, the cause of death has been blunt force trauma. Nobody's mentioned the possibility of a gunshot.
Right, there's no bullet hole in the skull.
Edythe says it's possible she hit her, but she can't remember. But she also pulled Louise out of the front seat, dragging her by her feet so that her head was constantly hitting the car and the pavement. She got her into the trunk of her car, arrived home around 6:15. She cleaned up. Louise is in the trunk. She goes to class.
Christ.
She taught class until 9:30.
What?
Before she left, she called Bill at his friend's house, and she was home by 10 after 10.
What?
She said she never told Bill any of this. She cleaned out the car and hid the bloodstained clothes. On Friday, October 31st, Edythe had children with her. Now, sources will vary on how many. Some say 2, some say 3. The book I mentioned in the source notes reports that she babysat for 2 of the children. All of them were under the age of 4. So Edythe's oldest daughter usually picks up the kids and Edythe watches them. But that day, Edythe did it herself. And then she dropped them off around 6, which was a little late. The dad notices that his son's snowsuit is wet Edythe says, "Whoops, sorry, I was cleaning the car. The seats must have been a little damp. And oh, by the way, sorry if they smell smoky. We were burning leaves all day." The 4-year-old said nothing about burning leaves, but he did say that they went on a really long drive and he saw a boat.
Oh my God, she did it in front of children.
Either way, the kids are in the car with Edythe as she
Oh.
drove to Cowan Lake after buying gas.
Oh, no.
When she spotted the service road, she backed into the area of weeds, opened the trunk. Edythe reports that the body was stiff and hard to move, and she had to
Ew.
roll Louise to a spot where she poured gas over
Ugh.
her, added rags, set it on fire, and then got out of there as fast as possible. Driving home, she started throwing some of Louise's belongings out, as well as the gun. She was home by 2. She continued to clean the car, fed the kids lunch.
Wow.
Yeah. With this story, police actually have to stop Pennsylvania Train 78 that contains Louise's body, which is being transported for burial, because they
Oh.
need to do another examination
Yeah.
because did they miss a bullet?
Right. That's what I'm.
I mean,
How do you miss that?
well, because when they look at the x-rays, they see possible metal fragments in the x-rays, and so they need to call the body back.
Oh,
How do you miss that?
that's pretty bad.
Test results also show that saturation of carbon dioxide is evidence that Louise had breathed in smoke at some point, which means that she would have been alive but most likely unconscious in the trunk of a car that entire time. Further tests of Edythe's car show blood splatter everywhere, ceiling, dashboard, steering wheel, everywhere. So after telling her version of events, Edythe then the next day takes police up to Cowan Lake to walk them through it. She doesn't have a lawyer. It appears to be a bit of a game looking for this gun because there isn't a gun. Louise didn't bring her own gun. It was Bill's gun. And now when she finally admits that, now she's saying she was doing target practice that day and had it in the car.
While you're babysitting children?
She made Bill keep the gun inside the house in a drawer and the bullets in the car. She wanted to surprise him, so she loaded the gun, gone down to the riverbank that week, practiced, and then put the gun in the glove and forgot about it. That's the news story.
Convenient.
Yeah. By the time she gets back to the police station, she now has a lawyer. Her brother has retained William Foss Hopkins. Edythe is officially charged with murder, and she's surprised because she thought it would be manslaughter because it was clearly an accident.
Okay, honey.
She also began saying that she was denied an attorney and they didn't let her have one for, this weird wild goose chase.
She's unhinged.
Well, so November 21st, her lawyer Hopkins wants the case delayed because they still aren't sure how Louise even died. And they don't know who has jurisdiction. So he wants the case delayed. Hopkins himself also has a lot of doubts about Edythe's story. He doesn't think she's telling the full truth. And this is her own lawyer. The timeline doesn't work for him. She would have had to set a body on fire during the day and no one would have noticed or seen it, including the worker who was there. That doesn't make sense to him. The pathologists say the fire would have had to burn for 2 to 3 hours to do the damage it did. So how did it stay lit for that long and nobody noticed it during the day? Also, Edythe had quit her waitressing job because she was unable to lift the trays. They were too heavy. She had some sort of issue with her arms. So
how did she lift the body?
How's she lifting the body?
Bill is back in the picture.
Bigger than her and putting it in the trunk, which I know I hate to say that. I hate when they're like, oh, women weren't strong enough. But in this case, she legitimately was like, I can't carry a tray. So,
right, like maybe she tore her rotator cuff or something.
Yeah, she could have had thoracic outlet syndrome for all we know. But if you're not able to lift a tray, I don't know if you're lifting 150 pounds.
Yeah.
But, anyway. The part I find extra weird, Bill is continuing to visit Edythe.
Wait, in what sense?
In the jail. He's
cool with it.
He knows that she's murdered his wife that he wanted to reconcile with, and he still is visiting her.
Yeah, that's a little off.
I feel like that's a little off. I feel like at that point I'd be like, you know what? I think we're going to have to go our separate ways.
Just a little bit.
It's not me, it's you.
Bill's involved.
By February, Bill has moved to D.C. with a much younger woman.
Okay, Bill, you're a schmuck.
Yeah, his lawyer can't wait to tell Edythe this. Can't wait to tell Edythe because he's thinking now maybe she'll be pissed enough to tell me the truth because something fishy is going on here. Nope. She sticks to that story.
What?
In jail, Edythe is making the papers for, obviously, this horrific, violent murder, but also because she's sewing her own dresses. So the newspaper is always reporting on like the new outfits that she's got that she made herself. Yeah, I know.
Okay, who cares?
This is why the book, I haven't mentioned it yet because I didn't want to blow the title, but it's called Cincinnati's Savage Seamstress, The Shocking Edythe Klumpp Murder Scandal by Richard O. Jones. So it's in the source notes.
Great alliteration.
I know. Nailed it. But I didn't want to say it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the trial is packed because,
Yeah.
hello, a home ec teacher went wild.
Right.
People are afraid of losing their seats, so they'll like bring a bag lunch and they'll just won't leave their seat and they just sit there eating while they're watching it. And the judge says that's disrespectful enough. If you're going to eat, you need to leave.
Yeah.
This is not.
I hate that stuff so much.
Yeah. Now, nobody is there in support of Edythe. Bill's long gone with his teenage bride. Edythe had told, to her credit, had told her mother to stay away with the children. She does not want them there. So nobody's there to support Edythe. Prosecution thinks the murder was actually financial more than it was a love triangle. So Edythe and Bill actually had a loan pending, right? Because they were going to buy out her ex-husband so that she could keep the house. She told the bank they were married.
Oh.
And if the bank found out she wasn't married, this might be an issue because it's...
But she was getting a divorce.
Yeah, but she's a single woman and credit is not... There's not fair lending laws, you know?
Yeah.
It's not great. So she was afraid that's what they say is her motivation. They also say that she bought the gas before Louise went missing, which is how she got that first degree charge, saying that it was premeditated. Now, the defense says it was self-defense, manslaughter at the worst. He's like, listen, Edyth's selfish and terrible.
Yeah.
She burned a body to hide up a murder. Awful. Despicable. But she did not buy the gas before Louise went missing. That's incorrect. She bought it after. The cause of death has not even been proven. So how could they miss the metal? How could this investigation has been mishandled? How do you know if a gun is not the murder weapon? That's all he has because Edythe is sticking to her story. She won't tell him anything. Now, during the crime scene photos, Edythe starts sobbing. And Hopkins, her lawyer, fought hard to suppress the photos from the jury because it was so horrific. And he lost. And he basically was like, well, this case is over. Because once the jury saw the photos of Louise, they couldn't look at Edythe any other way. Then how could you do that? Now, Edyth's car was brought into the courtroom. Hopkins' theory is that the skull fractures happened as Edythe was dragging Louise. And the court even has Edythe load a gun, which she's not able to do.
Oh.
She doesn't know how to do it, which is a big part of her story.
Interesting.
And she attempts to do it and actually makes a mistake. And they're like, have you done this before? You said that you did.
Bill loaded it.
Now, Edyth's daughters testify. Jill, who's 17, testifies that she saw blood on her mother's clothing that day. And Joanne, who's only 12, testifies that her mother did, in fact, receive a call Thursday right before 5.
Yeah.
Which she said it was Louise. Now, despite Hopkins' efforts, Edythe, real uphill battle. It doesn't matter that she went to church, that she's a teacher, that she's a daycare provider, that she's an award-winning foster mother. She's labeled a homewrecker. And they've seen the pictures of Louise. So, first-degree murder, jury, it's over. Edyth's found guilty. No recommendation for mercy, which means that she would get death by electrocution.
Oh, my God. I've been thinking about this, and I feel very dumb asking it. I
love it.
So a jury comes to a verdict, but the judge can do whatever they want, right?
Well, the judge does the sentencing.
So what if the jury says guilty, but the judge isn't convinced? What happens there? I don't know how that works.
So it's very unusual. I think it can happen, but it's very unusual. And the precedent is to respect the jury's decision.
Okay, but the judge can do whatever they want.
I assume they'd have to have a serious reason and evidence to support that.
Okay.
There must be evidence that supports it beyond a reasonable doubt. So you'd have to have...
Got it.
You'd have to be like, well, guess what? I just saw this video of somebody else doing it. So...
Right.
Never mind. She is facing the death penalty, okay? The case is not over.
What?
After she's found guilty, Edythe confesses to a chaplain during a prison visit that she'd lied.
Yeah. Bill.
This gets back to Hopkins, and there's a new version of events.
Hopkins is probably like, son of a...
I know. Hopkins is like, lady, what are you doing? I've been trying so hard to save your life, you dummy.
Right.
When she arrives for sentencing, Hopkins relays the news story. The major difference is that Bill Bergen was there.
Yep.
And Bill Bergen shot Louise.
Pull his ass back from D.C.
Edythe is still sentenced to death on December 15th.
What?
And they'll have to go through the Court of Appeals. I mean, it's a sentencing hearing, so they have to go through a Court of Appeals. Here's the news story, okay? And, you know, I don't want to stick up for Edythe, but some of the points when I heard the first recollection don't make sense.
Not with knowing the little context.
Why would you do that? There's just some weird things. So Louise did call Edythe on Thursday, just before 5 p.m., but Edythe agreed to meet with Louise only after she called Bill and asked him to join so they could all talk together. Bill agreed. He picked up Louise. Edythe met the two of them, and they both got into her car. When she picked them up, Louise and Bill were already fighting. Louise got in the front, Bill got in the back.
Okay, I was wondering.
That's one of the things that I thought was interesting because Edythe had to put herself in the back of the car.
Yes.
Which was odd. I was like, why do you need to be in the back?
I was saying the same thing. It's like a weird placement.
And she had to make up this whole story. They're fighting. Edythe is driving. Bill hits Louise during the argument. He slaps her.
God.
Then Louise starts telling Edythe how terrible Bill is, that he started cheating on her 2 weeks into their marriage, that he's abusive. I mean, hello, you just saw it happen.
Yeah.
He's cheating on her. All she wants is more financial support for their daughter. Edythe's driving around at this point trying to like figure out what to do because they're fighting.
Stop at the police station, maybe?
Edythe asks Bill if she can stop because she claims that she is truly pregnant. Bill said it was a lie, but she says she is pregnant and she feels sick and has to go to the bathroom. And so she asks to stop and Bill says no. So Edythe pulls over to like an undeveloped road and pulls over, walks away and takes care of what she needs to take care of in the bushes. This is on Stratton Drive, so not the park that she originally mentioned, but a different location. When she returns to the car, Bill is leaning over Louise in the front seat.
Oh, God.
There's no signs of a gun, but Louise is covered in blood.
He hit her.
However, the gun is in the car because Bill had been shooting down by the river about a week before that day, not Edythe.
Got it.
Edythe admits she does not know even how to load a gun, which they saw in court. Bill tells Edythe that Louise took the gun out of the glove. They struggled over it, and she accidentally was shot.
How would she know it's in there?
Edythe is surprised by this because, one, the glove is usually locked, and she doesn't believe that the gun would be loaded, which is another good point because she had watched Bill clean the gun out after practice, after target practice. So it seems that this gun that they couldn't even find in the autopsy, right? They missed the first time.
Yeah.
It's just something that Bill made up to tell Edythe. And then Edythe ran with it, thinking that was the truth and trying to keep her story as close to the truth as possible.
Oh, boy. Why the fuck is she protecting him? That's what I don't get. Like, is she that much in love with him?
So Edythe feels for a pulse. And then she takes off running, trying to get help. Now, this is a part of her story that didn't make sense. If she did it by herself, why does she take off running and then just go back?
And then turn around.
Right. This makes sense. She took off running and Bill yelled at her and threatened to kill her if she didn't come back.
Yep.
That also makes way more sense. I'm like, oh, okay. Bill and Edythe together put Louise in the trunk. Also makes way more sense. He goes to Mel's house. He tells her she needs to go to school or people will question it. Once class is done, Edythe calls Bill at Mel's house, which again makes sense because I'm thinking, why would she bother calling Bill if she has her own car, if she knows that she's just done this terrible thing? Why wouldn't she just hurry up and go home? But it makes sense if she's calling Bill waiting to know what to do next. They meet at home. They discuss what they should do. Edythe said she considered reaching out to state troopers because remember she dated one and she worked there. But every time she thought about it, she became too afraid. They agree to go to Cowan Lake. Original plan was to put Louise's body in the lake. But as they're leaving, Bill grabbed a can of gasoline and he said it was just in case. Bill doused Louise in gas and started the fire. Then they returned to Edythe's house.
Where are the kids?
I think they're just sleeping. It's really late.
Okay.
That makes more sense because Edythe starting a fire during the day and letting it burn for 2 to 3 hours without anyone noticing it seems absolutely impossible.
I don't know. During the night, it's way easier to see a fire.
But this is a pretty remote area. So it's down a service road. It's not a populated area. It's a hunting place. And then that would explain why when the the ranger was there the next morning, he didn't notice anything because it would have been out. Bill tells Edythe that she has to go back the next day and continue to burn Louise.
God.
This is where she got the gas, took the kids, went back.
Okay, this is where the kids come in.
To the site. And when she got there, she said she couldn't go through with it. She just closed the car back up and sped away and told Bill that she did.
Yeah.
Bill then asked Edythe to go along with his story because nobody would believe him that it was an accident because he was the about to be ex-husband, and that nobody would charge and arrest a woman for this.
God, what an evil schmuck.
When she told Bill she didn't want to, he threatened to hurt her children.
Okay.
With this new confession, Hopkins is also looking for evidence to support it. FYI, right? Bill is in D.C. He's married to a 19-year-old.
Ew.
Says Edythe is lying and he had nothing to do with his wife's murder. Edythe's death sentence is postponed to May 16th. High Court refuses to hear an appeal. Execution date now set for June 17th. The governor at the time, Michael DeSalle, opposes the death penalty. He starts watching the case really closely, and he's starting to consider clemency if appeals fail. The Supreme Court refuses the case again. Execution now, December 9th, 1960. Then it's moved one more time, January 6th, 1961. The Pardon and Parole Commission listened to Hopkins, who begged to let Edythe undergo a truth serum test that he would pay for as a private citizen, as well as listen to pleas from her mother and sister.
What the fuck is a truth serum? That was fake.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like it had a excitement for a moment in time. It's kind of like the hypnosis or, recovering past memories. Basically how the book and everything I read on it, it basically alters your brain similar to how it would be if you were inebriated, if you were drunk, and you would be more likely to talk. Yeah, but it's up for debate whether or not it would make you tell the truth.
Right.
Or just make you talk more. So it was something that was kind of more popular in this time period. They vote 3-2 in favor of execution. However, a member of the board spoke to the governor and said, you should really consider the truth serum test for further evidence because we don't want to execute an innocent woman.
Yeah.
So Governor DeSalle looks into the case. He has a hard time believing she did this on her own in such a short period of time. Because one, is she even strong enough because of her arm issue to move Louise herself? He has serious doubts. But also, she would have to do it incredibly quick based off of where she said the original murder took place and then getting back to her house at the time that they know she got back. She would have to, she would have to do it, kill her and put her in the trunk with under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just don't think she could. Even if she was able to struggle through it, I don't think she could do it that fluently. Plus, how could she set the body on fire during the day with workers going in and out and nobody notices or sees it? It also makes way more sense that they would miss a burn spot rather than a raging fire.
Yeah.
Additionally, one of Louise's shoes was recovered off of Cowan Creek Bridge around 9:30 a.m. If Louise had been brought to Cowan Lake that day, her shoe wouldn't have been there yet.
Oh, shit.
Right? So DeSalle's like, hey, this is all sounding like Edythe was lying and now might be telling the truth. He goes to visit her on January 4th. Remember, her date of execution is set for the 6th.
Yeah, shit.
She allows truth serum to be administered, which is sodium amytal. And it's they liken it to basically being like a polygraph. Which we know she's failed the previous polygraphs, but that makes sense because she was absolutely hiding.
She was lying.
A ton of shit. So it makes sense that she failed it. But what was she hiding? He asks her all of these questions. She recounts her stories under this, medicinal trance. He goes back and studies the evidence. He agrees to commute the sentence to life in prison. He gets a lot of pushback for this decision, criticism, and the bar voted on whether or not to even allow truth serum to be used moving forward. But Edythe's truth serum account was published in the newspapers, and a few of the details kind of jogged the memory of some of the law enforcement in that area at that time. So, for instance, a deputy sheriff on Thursday, October 30th, 1958, found a pair of glasses and parts of a necklace and bloody clothes on Stratton Drive, which is the new location that Edythe said. A security officer was doing rounds. He went down to the end of the development, which had no houses at the time. He saw a large pool of blood and these items. He thought it was a prank because, again, it's Halloween time, but he still collected those items and handed them over to the sheriff. The blood on those items came back as type O, but everyone involved was apparently type A. So it added
What?
it was like, oh, we almost had it, but not quite because they don't have DNA testing at this point.
Hmm.
There's also reports on the same night of a woman near the area calling police because a man knocked on her door saying, "Can you please call the police? I hear a woman screaming like she's being murdered." She called the police. That was the end of it. And she didn't think anything of it till she saw this account in the newspaper. They questioned Bill again. Remember, his alibi was a little weak. He said he went to have dinner, then he was driving around for a minute, and then he went
Yeah.
to Mel's. Now he said during that driving around period, he visited a sex worker named Ann Anderson. I mean, this guy, husband of the year. Well, unfortunately, Ann has passed away.
Oh,
But in
did
her
he do that?
original, she'd been interviewed before, and Ann had said, no, he wasn't with me that night.
Right. Okay.
So Bill continues to deny any involvement in the murder, however. Now, on Governor DeSalle's final day as governor, he's changed the sentence, right? So
Yeah.
Edythe won't face death, but he additionally changes it to second-degree murder so that she will be eligible for parole because he's convinced of her innocence, but he can't necessarily prove it.
Interesting.
This will make her eligible for parole at some point, and he thinks even though she's innocent of the murder, he still says she's guilty of other things, which we know, right?
Yeah.
Perjury, covering up a
Yeah.
crime. I mean, a bunch of stuff. Meanwhile, in prison, Edythe, I mean, this is not easy. Edythe is doing as well as can be expected. She's been on death's door several times, right, with the execution getting moved. And she takes it in stride every time. They said the first time she broke down, and then after that, she kind of just took it like, what are you going to do? Once that's taken off the table and her sentence is reduced to second-degree murder, she's in the choir, she's on the softball team, she's on the basketball team,
In
and she's
prison?
sewing American flags for the state of Ohio.
Wow.
She's doing the best she can. In May of 1971, Edythe Klumpp was granted parole at 53 years old. She was 40 at the time that this occurred, just to give you context. She denied any interviews. She had a kitten that they'd let her have in prison. She took that kitten. She moved in with her oldest daughter. Edythe remarried in 1976 and lived the rest of her life quietly in Kentucky, surrounded by family. She sold handmade crafts and doll clothes. She passed away December 24th, 1999 at 81.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, what? What do you think?
Wait, can we not pull Bill back into this?
They weren't able to prove that anything was attached to him.
That's crazy. I feel like they've put people in jail for much less than that.
Well, I mean, if she'd started this way, sure. But at this point, I mean, she's already lied so many times, it's hard to know what to do.
Jesus.
I mean, which version do you believe?
I absolutely believe the version with Bill.
Yeah.
What a schmuck. He got to, what did he do for the rest of his life? Cheat on everybody he met? God.
Yeah.
That's awful. Like, obviously, Edythe did some bad stuff, and she did seem a little unhinged at times in her life.
Yeah.
But, like,
Edythe made some choices.
He was absolutely involved in this.
Yeah. This is a really horrifying example of just allowing somebody in your life to control you and then just letting it get way out of hand.
Absolutely.
Way out of hand. I mean, if what she says is true, again, she does not have a great track record, so it's hard to know. But that second version makes the most sense to me because of all the little bits of truth from the first one.
Right, because it didn't make sense in some ways.
It didn't make sense. Like, why are you running down the road and then stopping and then running back? How are you able to lift somebody and put them in the trunk within
lift the tray.
3 minutes when you can't lift a couple of dishes? You know, those things were all great questions, but she let Bill convince her to cover for him, I think she went into the police station thinking that it would be dismissed or it would be, maybe be like a little bit of an inconvenience, but everybody would understand. And then once she was in there, he threatened her children, apparently, which...
That's huge.
Which she can't get back. Now she can't get back out because she's agreed.
Yeah.
She's already started down that path,
so
and now she can't get back out. And he's with her children. He lives there, not her.
God. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it why she didn't change her story.
But once he moved away, I don't know why she didn't change her story.
Yeah. Maybe because she was still stuck. I don't know. He could easily go back.
I know there's no way to tell. I mean, how I look at it is how did she live out the rest of her life, which was quietly and as a grandmother and as a
Ugh.
mother, and that her children took her back into
Yeah,
their lives. That says
exactly.
a lot to
Yeah.
me as to the kind of woman maybe she was, and she took a lot of really bad turns because poor Louise deserved way more
Yeah, no
than that. She
kidding.
should have been willing to stand up for Louise, if not herself, and she wasn't. So, I don't think it was premeditated. One of the accounts said that Edythe found a wrench in the car when she was cleaning it. I think he beat her.
Mm.
I don't think a gun was ever involved. I think he just made that up on the spot to make Edythe go along with him and feel
Oh,
bad for him. But also, like, medical examiners, why don't you know if there's a bullet or not? Like, let's
right.
make
That
sure
doesn't
we're
make any
zipped up.
sense.
Yeah. It's not a satisfying end in any point.
No.
Louise is a very sad victim, a mother who didn't get a chance to be free of Bill and to raise her daughter, which is heartbreaking. And then Edythe made some very bad choices and in turn also became a victim of
Yeah.
this circumstance. And it's just icky all the way around. But that's the story of Edythe Klumpp.
Jesus.
Well, what are your final words?
Fuck Bill. I mean, just really along the lines that you're talking about, where just if someone is controlling your life in any way, that's a red flag, and it will probably get worse. And also, I mean, who knows how abusive he was, but when Edythe saw Bill like slap
Yeah.
Louise, like if someone ever lays a hand on you or someone else, there will be more abuse, whether it's physical or emotional or whatever. That's just it will continue in some way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that as hard as it is to you got to break it. It's
That's the
just so
part of the
sad.
story that I struggle with the most is that I don't necessarily believe that she left the car to go into the bushes and then came back and it happened.
Yeah, maybe she
That
was
is the
there.
piece that still seems off to me because why would he let you stop there but not I don't know.
Right.
It just especially if
Yeah,
it
that was
wasn't
weird.
premeditated that I don't know. I mean, that's what she says is the truth after the fact, so that's all we have to go on. Bill says none of that's the truth. So, don't cover up somebody's abuse. They're
Mm-mm.
just going to turn on you. That is
Yeah.
definitely what's going to happen. All right. Well, who should listen?
Governors followed his instinct a bit there. Judges, lawyers, people in relationships. Just a good cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And throw kittens in there. There's a happy ending for you.
This is not the first time I've heard of prisoners being able to have pets.
That's
Is
what I'm
that
saying. Like we say, I mean, prison's really bad.
Stop acting like you
I
would
know.
fit in. Like you're going to slide into this
There was a
HOA of
choir.
prison.
What if there's a book club?
There's a choir. You're like, there's a choir. I don't know if you know, but I actually performed for Hillary Clinton when I was 10. Do you want to tell that?
Well, now that you bring that up.
She actually did, guys. I've seen photographic evidence.
Yep.
She sang for Hillary and Bill in the White House
It did.
for a school trip. How old were you?
God, I must have been no older than 8, I think.
What song did you sing?
I mean, we riffed on the classics. So,
Wow.
12 Days of Christmas, so that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's thrilling. I didn't believe her until she brought in a picture. So, yeah, that choir is a real big pull for you. A choir and a kitten. That's all she needs. I bet you like the softball team too.
I was, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And we have Mary Kate with us.
Special guest.
Mary Kate. I can't wait to hear all the Mary Kate stories and have her maybe gang up on you with me, I think.
Well, it's really nice of you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to make my drink boozy then.
You should probably record at night. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com.
You can buy things at
teatimecrimes.show.
You can send me gifts at just kidding. All right. Talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye.